as well for the YouTube. And hey, this is OotiniCast episode 385 being recorded on the 7th of April 2020. We're waiting for Doc, so it's going to be a little bit until we start the actual show. So this is sort of just a pre-show, and then we'll get going. We're going to have a new guest, James, a.k.a. Sunny, of University of Coruscant, and previously from Sunny's Diner. And so, hey, I'll just call you Sunny, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
It's absolutely fine. I went by Sunny for so long that,
Yeah, exactly. It might help people remember, oh, yeah, Sunny's Diner. I remember that back in the day.
Most people are going to recognize me as Sunny. They're like, James, is
it?
Is he like their editor or something?
Right. And I right now, even though we're just streaming, I want to start talking, about the process and stuff like that. But I want to save that for the show so that it can be on the podcast as well as just the stream. So let me go ahead and I'll tweet out that we've started the stream. I also need to get into Twitch chat, so let me do that as well.
I'm gonna try to load up the Twitch as well, and I don't know if this is gonna cross the streams or what's gonna happen, but I would
never cross the streams. You said never cross the streams.
Important safety tip, Egon. Thanks.
All right, so it looks like it's working now. And we're just waiting for Doc. He's, we already had to move it an hour later because he had a meeting, and apparently that went a little long. So he's hustling, he's working on it, but he does need a little more time. So we're just going to vamp a little bit and kind of get ready, and then we will get going as soon as we can. Let me go ahead and do the tweet now.
Well, there's 5 people apparently watching already, so...
I see Dex in there and a couple other people.
I think we would call this a success by all metrics.
Yeah, there's Kitty and 24, Squishy Gucci, Ducks here, Siskayaka, Phantasmagoria. Yeah, so we got some people here already, which is awesome. All right.
I think I applied for your guild a while ago and never heard anything back. I'm really not sure, though.
Well, usually we just do it online where you're just not able to get an answer back from the channel.
I'm not really sure. I think I tried to do it online. I gotta be honest with you.
We usually do it, well, the way we say at the end of the episode, maybe, it's easy to miss it because it's during the end vamp thing, the outro. But yeah, we do a C join Utini, and then that's the Utini channel, and then you just ask for an invite, and hopefully, someone can answer you. There's usually someone on, but not always, I guess.
Now for sure, now that I've guilted you right on Twitch, I should be good, right?
Yeah, exactly. We'll figure it out for you.
All right, I'm trying to line everything up so I'm not looking directly sideways during this entire process.
Okay. Getting this out. Come on.
All right. And we have the show notes here. This is good.
Yep.
God, I was listening to your last podcast, and the amount of inside baseball that you guys talk is just astronomical. I mean, you're so good at it.
Well,
but just a crazy thing to try to listen and understand, and when you're not actively in that world anymore. It's nuts. But I was watching. Oh, see, I can't talk about this because I gotta wait for Doc to come on because.
Oh, I see Doc is on. So let me see if I can. I should be able to add him. Let's see. Doop. Boop. Okay. There we go. That seems better. Can you hear me still?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good.
Can you still hear me?
I can hear you. Yep.
Good.
Yep, and Doc's turning on his audio or video rather. Although right now it's just a gray screen or kind of a taupe screen.
Yes, it is.
Never knew the word taupe until I worked in a shoe department of a JCPenney's over a holiday season when I was young. And believe me, you'll know the word taupe after that. It's like, okay, gray-brown is taupe. Hey, Doc, I can see you. Great background. I love it. I can't hear you, though, apparently. Yeah, I can't hear you at all. Also, there's a... Yeah, oh, is this that weird fuzziness you were saying around your head the other time? Or maybe it was the other episode or something. I'm getting some of that weird fuzziness around your headphones and stuff as the program tries to green screen you properly. I can't hear you at all. I can't hear you at all. I cannot hear you. Nor is your green... I better text him. Hang on. Can't hear you, and your box isn't green when you talk.
Working Class Nerds is asking if this is Dr. Sunny Ravencourt, and yes. But we're experiencing so many technical difficulties right now that it may be.
Okay, I think he's restarting or something because he just dropped out.
Time to lip read. This is a problem for me because if I have the chat going, then I'm gonna want to be doing all of it. So I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, don't worry. I only do that when I have to like that, and then I just make it full screen, so I won't even see the chat. So even if you did chat, I wouldn't see it.
Okay, can you hear me?
Hey,
now?
I
Yes.
can hear you, Doc.
Okay. Sometimes there's too many moving pieces. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I love the background.
Green screened background.
Well, actually, I don't use a green screen anymore. It's a program that will just filter out. See, like my hands, they disappear.
Right, because it doesn't. Right. It's like, oh wait, that's not a person because it gets mixed up with your mic and stuff.
Yeah. So, but it helps my room to feel more open. Right. And quite frankly, it does a better job anyway of using an actual green screen, even though my hand will disappear.
Right. I was going to notice that there is some artifacts around your headset and so on, but it's not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah.
Oh no,
it's
I think
trying.
It's good.
Yeah, and I imagine that's true. It would be very claustrophobic to be like streaming. You've got a wall right in front of you, and then now you've got a green wall right behind you.
That's right. Also, with the green screen, since it would be connected to my chair, you would see the corners of my room in the top corners.
Yeah.
So like now if I'm playing, I can lean back, I can
move around.
I can actually move.
Right.
So like that little bit of haziness, I don't really I kind of like it. It makes me feel Force ghosty.
I love it.
All right, I'm going to hit record on Audacity.
I was just going to ask. Yeah, it's awesome.
My levels look good.
Cool. Yeah.
My Audacity has not crashed. This is promising.
Good. Yeah.
Everything looks good.
Right. And you've used Audacity before, it sounds like, James?
Well, I mean, I'm familiar with the concept of it. I used GarageBand for everything, and I still use GarageBand.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I use GarageBand on a computer that's so old that it won't let me update the computer anymore. So we're at the tail ends of this whole thing, approaching having to really learn another program.
Right.
I'm not looking forward to it.
Okay, so sounds like you're ready, James. Doc, you ready?
I haven't done any show notes, but
I know.
Sure.
Well, it's going to take a little while. I mean, you have a little time if, because we're going to have to introduce James and so on, and we'll be talking, for quite a bit before we actually get to your week. So you have a little time to think and so on. It's all good. Are you good to go?
One minute. I'm just trying to get the show notes on my screen.
Okay.
I don't need to type them. I just want to see them.
Right.
All right. That's not it. Is this episode 385?
It is.
Yeah. Okay. I found it. So you're going to lead in with...
Well, we've got a brand new guest, so we're going to be talking with that. Oh, you're talking about the podcast, that line?
The podcast that's made time and ally.
Don't give it away yet.
I don't have anything to follow that up with.
Okay.
Where's that even from, Chill?
That's from Rogue One.
Rogue One. Oh, I can't. Okay, well, I'll come up with something. It'll be fine.
Okay. All right. I say we get going then.
Let's.
All right, everyone's Audacity is rolling. We know we're streaming fine, and recording's going. So I'm gonna let's get this going.
Thing?
I'm sorry, what?
Do we need to do the 3, 2, 1 thing for?
No, I do that at the end. Yeah, that's it. That's just at the end. So what we'll do is at the end, we'll sign off. We'll stop the stream, but we'll keep the Audacity rolling. And then the three of us will just do a 3, 2, 1, and we'll stop the audio at the same time. And that way, I know exactly.
Record, right?
Yeah, he already knows to just let it record and just keep it going. Yep.
Okay.
Until the very end when we say 3, 2, 1, stop. So we're good. All right. Let me have a little water and we'll get going.
So when you say stop is when I should stop.
Pretty much, yeah.
Just like in many things, right? You don't have consent. You don't have consent to record this anymore.
Is that the express written consent of OotiniCast?
This is not the Me Too OotiniCast.
All right, here we go. Going in 5. Hi, and welcome to the OotiniCast, the podcast that has made time an ally of the rebellion. This is episode 385, being recorded on Tuesday, April 7th, 2020. I'm your host, Chill, and with me is my co-host, Dr SWTOR. Hey, Doc.
But Chill, is this episode like the rebellion built on hope?
I don't know. I say yes, because we have a first-time guest. I'd say quite overdue, because he's been around the community for quite some time. And this is James, a.k.a. Sunny, formerly of Sunny's Diner, now of the University of Coruscant. Hey, James, how you doing?
I'm doing excellent. I'm very excited about this. This guest appearance is approximately 8 years too late.
Exactly.
So... Oh, no.
But I love it. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, tell us about your current podcast and also about Sunny's Diner, like how you got started and all that, all the good historical details.
So, Sunny's Diner was a launch podcast for SWTOR. It was a podcast that a friend and I put together. We had listened to an old World of Warcraft podcast. Actually, I had listened. He had no idea. I really roped this dude into the whole project. His name was Radical. His name is actually Mickey. And he's my best friend up in Duluth. And I was listening while I was working to a show called TavernCast, which was an old World of Warcraft podcast. And they held it in a tavern. And I thought, the sounds and everything like that, it was so great.
Yeah.
And so, I could do this. I, went to college for radio way back in the day, but it was hard to make like $5 an hour for your whole life, and so naturally moved on to something else. But this whole podcasting thing was kind of really hitting its stride at around the time that SWTOR came out.
Right.
What year did SWTOR come out?
2011.
2011 at the very
end of it, though. Yeah.
Tail of 11. Okay, so that makes sense. And so I came up with this idea of doing the whole show inside of a diner, and had all the diner sounds and everything. And it was an hour long, and it was for the casual gamer, is what we said. The podcast for the rest of us. And so it was a very, big picture look at MMO gaming, because this was coming off the heels of World of Warcraft, and so there was a lot of people that were regular adults that were playing MMOs at that time, and still do. It was kind of, this was the introduction to adult gaming. All of us that had Nintendos and Segas when we were growing up have now transitioned into this, like, holy smokes, there's this whole new genre of games out there, MMOs, that are awesome. And now here's this Star Wars one. Although, I'm not taking anything away from Star Wars Galaxies, but I mean, SWTOR was a big launch.
Right.
That was a big deal. And so we came out with the show, and it was great, and we had a lot of fun, and we ended up getting hooked up with some guys from Old Republic Dads was another show.
I remember them.
Yeah.
Old Republic Radio. And so I became good friends with a couple guys. Cash was and still is a good friend of mine. And then JB did some other stuff. There's like a little podcast for just a blip in time. It's called like Outlaws Den. It was a PvP podcast.
I remember them too.
But I ended up being friends with those guys, and we just kind of kept doing all sorts of other stuff. We did a show after we sort of left SWTOR, and now they're doing a show on ESO, on Elder Scrolls Online. It's called
nice.
Lore Seekers, and it's tremendously successful. And I went on and did this other thing. I forgot to mention, though, that remember Mos Eisley Radio back in the day with Zach? And I think one of the developers that you just had on your show was actually on that show, like as a host, not as like a guest. But Musco? I think Musco came from Mos Eisley Radio.
Musco was definitely a podcaster first, yes, and then like he was one of the very first. He was basically on the first podcast that came out, and then they made him part of the team. So
yeah, and so that's kind of that whole time. That was one of the first games that I really remember them embracing the guild communities and the podcasting communities and things like that as a strategy. There was a guy named David Bass, who at the time was the sort of coordinator for all that stuff. I had him on our show. Anyway, Zach from Mos Eisley Radio eventually became a co-host on Sonny's Diner as well. And I did that for a long time, and then I kind of transitioned into just general gaming interviews, and then I kind of lost some steam after a few years and transitioned it into what is that? What is the name of that game? It has not been released. It's the Chris Roberts game, Star Citizen. And so we did it about Star Citizen for like a year with another friend of mine until Star Citizen looked like it was never going to come out. And it's still not out.
Wow.
It's been like 6 years later, and they're still talking about Star Citizen. It's insanity, right?
Yeah.
And so then I had some time off, and I was sitting around and thinking, like, God, I really, really love listening to these podcasts, and I love the community of the podcasts and the Lore Seekers guys, JB and Cash, and they were so passionate about it. And I'm like, I still have this passion. What am I doing? And so I talked with my buddy for a long time about what I should do, and I didn't really have a game that I was going to go back into at the time. And so we decided that it would be better for me to do this sort of abstract, long form, heavily edited podcast. And that's what the University of Coruscant became. It's basically an audio play in episodes. Each episode is a lecture. The whole first season takes place at the university, right? So you are more or less a student that has sorry, COVID-19 cough.
Oh no!
More or less a student that has downloaded or uploaded the show or the lecture to your HoloPad, and you're listening to it as though you're a student that maybe wasn't able to be in the lecture room but is taking the class. Right. So you have a lecture on all of these different subjects, and the whole first season is all about weaponry. But it's all so heavily edited to make you feel like you're there.
That's
cool.
And
then it kind of, the character of Sonny Ravencourt, Dr. Sonny Ravencourt, this washed up holodrama actor that somehow got like a paycheck from the university to do these lectures, really kind of took on a life of its own as this sort of bumbling Matthew McConaughey sort of thing. Which was kind of an impetus to the whole thing was when I found out that Matthew McConaughey was teaching at the University of Texas. He's teaching culture. Did you know this?
No, I did know this.
Yes,
yeah.
It's the best thing.
That's
ever.
Awesome.
Matthew McConaughey teaching culture, and so like this whole idea of this whole thing is just absolutely ridiculous. And then in season 2, we decided that we were just going to really lean into that, and so Dr. Ravencourt he's now on the run from his Bothan associate that had been getting him all of these cool weapons in the first season. And there's a bounty out on him, which sort of ties into like the love of the Mandalorian, which by the way is like the best Star Wars to come out for decades. It's so fantastic.
It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
But we still do the lectures. And so now I've got this kind of formula. It takes so much work, but it's really kind of satisfying in the end to have this evergreen product of Star Wars fun, you know?
Right. And so
I definitely envy you guys though, because I know how much fun it was to have a show about an IP, a game that is feeding you new things.
New stuff all the time, right?
There it is. This is what's coming out this week. Go ahead and talk about it and just go nuts. And that is, I miss that so much as I'm like in the middle of the night typing out, you know, lectures about a DL44 or something like that. I'm like, God, I wish somebody could just like tell me what is new this week, and then I could just talk about it. Because that's what Sonny's Diner was. You know, it was just we just took the approach of casual adults that happened to be gaming, and this is what we were playing, and it was great. It was a lot of fun.
So once you find a topic for a particular episode, so you just like do the research, like you go to Wikipedia and then maybe you read the novel that's most related to whatever you're talking about, that sort of thing?
So I've read most of the novels. I try to keep up with the novels, and you know, you don't just start reading the novels, right? Like there's so many novels out there. So you kind of already were reading the novels, or you don't know anything about the Yuzan Vong or something like that, right? Like it's just, there's just hundreds and hundreds of hours worth of reading, and I happen to have read a lot of those, and so now I'm just kind of staying current on what the new things are that's coming out. And so it kind of goes in chunks, right? So like I have to decide, all right, what's the whole season gonna be about lecture-wise?
Okay.
And so season 1 was weaponry. And then season 2, I'm like, well, what do I want to talk about? And we decided, and when I say we, I mean like the collective between me and Mickey and my wife and anybody else that'll listen to me. there's no actual like production team to this. It's just pretty much me and anyone that will answer my questions.
Right.
And so season 2 became Bounty Hunters because The Mandalorian was out, and I was really excited about Bounty Hunters, and there's so many good stories with those. And I'm like, I'll bet you I could get 9 separate bounty hunters to do a whole episode about. And then once I have that, then I have to decide, like, big picture, what is Sonny, what is Dr. Ravencourt going to be doing in this season? And so that one, you know, he's on the run. In season 3, I've got an idea. It's sort of, it'll be more or less on like the set of a movie.
Okay.
And so it'll be that whole thing. So now I've got a backdrop in which to let these characters kind of play out. And with season 2, it became so much easier to play off of because I started creating some recurring characters. Like he's got a TA named Todd, this sort of beaten down Mon Cal student that, you know, is the only one that is willing to stick it out with this clown that is now, you know, on the run and living in caves and all the rest of the stuff. And Sonny just is completely oblivious to like what this must be for Todd, you know, assuming that he's just happy doing it all for the credit, you know, the academic credit.
Right.
And so it's become a lot of fun doing that too. So, you know, once you have that, then it's like, okay, well, what 9 bounty hunters am I going to talk about?
Right. And well, how
you do like the 6 that were on the ship, right? Everybody that was on the Executor, and then you just pick a few more.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Now, how are you handling like the new canon versus the EU? Are you dealing with that, or have you decided to stick with the new? Or...
Oh yeah, I'm running all over it. That's how I'm doing it, and it's impossible. It is absolutely impossible to coherently separate the two at this point,
right.
Because you have, like, take like a guy like Thrawn, right?
Yeah.
So you have, it kind of goes in different ways, right? You have characters that have not been addressed, that just exist.
Right.
Then you have characters that have their stories have completely been blown up, like Luke Skywalker, right? So Luke has got two wildly divergent life paths at this point.
Right.
Darkest timeline, and then the one where he's a successful Jedi Master.
Right.
Yeah.
He's either like a Jedi hobo living in a mountain in the middle of nowhere on an island, or he's like he's got a wife and a kid and like countless students, and he's running the galaxy and all this other, like there's nothing you can't combine them.
Right.
And then there's the third category of people that are like Thrawn, and like Dengar and like Aura Singh, that are, they exist, they have a whole backstory in the legend stuff, and they don't really exist much in the movies, but they're starting to add them into things like Star Wars Rebels and the Clone Wars animated series and things like that.
Yeah.
So now you're starting to say like, okay, this guy actually is canon, and this is what he's doing now. So does that change his story back then?
Right.
You know?
And how much?
And they make little changes that make it difficult.
You know, I want to just interject here. I've thought about this, and you probably are a better person to ask than me just continuing to think about it for another year. Is there anything in the Disney continuity that says the Thrawn trilogy could not possibly have happened 5 years after Return of the Jedi?
No.
Right, so like maybe they all were successful for 5 years and then it all fell apart. I mean, Jaina becomes Ben Solo, like there's that kind of stuff.
Well, the Solo thing, the Ben Solo thing is difficult, right?
Yeah.
Because like in the Legend stories, Han and Leia have a kid.
And a reasonably successful marriage.
Don't they? And a reasonably successful marriage. And then you have, Ben Solo was Luke's kid. His name was Ben Skywalker.
Right?
And so now you really have a difficult time. And when I get into season, I guess, 4, maybe I'll do Jedi. Season 3 is probably going to be Sith Lords, to be totally honest with you.
Cool.
That seems to be the leader in the clubhouse and the one that people want to see. And that would be an easy one for me to get 9 Sith Lords out of, right? But the strategy that I take for this whole thing is I pretty much accept it as a problem, but the show itself takes place in this nebulous time in the future, right? Like way in the future. And
where
so
everything's history.
Where everything is history. And so I talk about the events in the past, and I get to like run all over them by saying, you'll hear like key words out of me, and I'll say like, some historians believe this.
Right.
And that's a sign that like, or legend has it, and that's almost for sure going to be the legend side.
Legend section, sure.
I mean, this happened on basically the first episode, because I was talking about lightsabers, right? And so with lightsabers, you have this problem that they're either powered by, it's the crystals, right? And so you either have the Disney crystals, which are very specific, come from a very specific place. Kyber crystals, those are your lightsaber crystals, right? Or you have what we grew up with in things like KOTOR, right? Where you could put basically anything into a lightsaber for the crystal. You could put glass, you could put anything like that. The lightsaber crystals were different colors that, would call to you and sing to you and things like that. There was no bleeding the crystal, like there was just red lightsaber crystals out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to address all of this. And it was one of those things that I just kind of ran all over and said, like, there's 2 divergent theories on how crystals work in lightsabers, right? Theory number 1 is just do whatever you want. Theory number 2 is Kyber crystals, right? And you kind of just explain all of it and say, like, here it is. Here's Star Wars,
It's the incessant need to like have the wand choose the wizard, and like when the theme park down the street has an incredibly successful store around their primary weapon, you got to just steal that idea for your awesome timeless weapon. And
I mean, I agree, and I know that Disney. I think the biggest thing that makes me say, "Okay, I get it," is that when Disney bought Lucasfilm, they had a big choice on their hands, right? They either had to go with this 20-year history of books and characters and backstories, because the characters are pretty well developed in those books. Like, it gets down to the nitty-gritty of their stories. Like Dengar's in the movie for like 3 seconds, and he's got an incredibly well developed backstory in those books.
Right.
And so Disney had to say, like, okay, we're either going to adhere to all of it, or we're going to adhere to none of it, and we're going to allow our people to write their own stories, and we're just not going to be beholden to any of it. And they did that, and then they didn't, right? Because then they're like, God, you know, the Thrawn story is
really awesome,
too good to get rid of, right? So,
well, their entire sequel trilogy could be subtitled "The Heir of the Empire," right? Like, that's what Rey ended up being. So they spent all this energy not doing heir to the Empire, and then Episode 9 made her the heir to the Emperor.
Right.
So, good job, Disney.
You know, and that was the thing, is that so many people that I've talked to say that they could have just done the Thrawn trilogy for the sequel trilogy. You know, like, it wouldn't have ruined anything. You just do that. And it's all great, and everybody loves it. There are very few Star Wars fans that don't like the Thrawn trilogy if they've read it. Right? But it sets up a bunch of things, right? It kind of sets up what Luke's doing. It sets up, I believe Mara Jade is introduced in those books, maybe?
Yeah, she is.
And so now you got Mara Jade, right? But who doesn't love Mara Jade, right? I'm waiting for Mara Jade to show back.
Nobody that listens to this podcast has a problem with Mara Jade, and if they do, they're not listening to any episodes after this one. No, keep listening to OotiniCast, guys.
You know, put your home address in the chat. They can come to your house and talk to you about Mara Jade.
She's one of my favorite characters. Heir of the Empire was the first Star Wars novel that I ever read. And it was many years after it came out. I just happened upon it on a family road trip we stopped at a thrift store, and it was a Star Wars book, and I can read this level now. And it just sucked me in. Like, I had the other 2 books by the time we were on the return trip. Like, nice. I made my parents stop and find them.
Go to Walden Books or something.
Yeah, we did.
And there's some of the first too, right? Like, they had not been writing the breadth of Star Wars books that we have now at that time. Like, when they did those were really early. And they're still regarded as people's favorites. They're not my personal favorite. My personal favorite trilogy is the Drew Karpyshyn Darth Bane trilogy.
Yeah.
That's a really good one.
I love Bane so much.
That's one of the few Star Wars books that I've gone back and reread like multiple times, because there's so many new Star Wars books. They just come out with them like every 2 months. They have a new one. But those ones I will actually go back and I find those to just be fabulous. But I mean, the Thrawn trilogy, it's like steak and lobster, right? Like, between those 2 trilogies, you have enough for anything you'd want to do, movie-wise. So it was always a bit of a surprise that they kind of got away from that and completely blew it all up.
Right.
But then decided to bring back Thrawn and bring back, some of those other people.
And then, of course, there's SWTOR canon, which is sort of its own thing. It's like they're allowed to do their own stories, but it's kind of separate. They could stomp on it if they wanted to, but it's far back enough that they usually don't.
So I've been waiting for that, right?
Yeah.
Have you guys been waiting for them to have the magic moment where they say, okay, SWTOR is canon?
In December, it felt like they were really moving in that direction with some tweets, and I believe they legitimized that Moraband used to be called Korriban, but everyone died and nobody knew what it was called, so it ended up getting a new name, or something like that.
And with Revan, right? I mean, Revan is really the linchpin to the whole thing. That they've got references to Revan now in Disney stuff. So they are on board with creating him, which is just and exactly like you said, like, we were so close to having that be just one day they show up and say, okay, SWTOR is canon.
That would be
I
awesome.
just don't know if they're willing to do it with the rest of the storyline, right? Like as they continue to come up with new storylines. And the newest one with the character, you're going to have to help me with his name, but like the fact that he's this, this body shifting dark lord that has existed forever.
Valkorian or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I was like sitting up in the middle of the night watching YouTube videos on who this dude was and looking at all of it, and the cinematics and everything are just spectacular. And, I don't know if they're willing to take that step. They might be willing to take pieces of it and say like, okay, the Revan story, that whole KOTOR, SWTOR type of situation, we'll take that. But I don't know if we're going to do all of it, because then they got to take the planets, they got to take the ships, they got to take, maybe the side characters. They got to do all of it.
Well, yeah, technically all of them would be, exactly, at that point. I suppose, though, it's still far back enough that, except for maybe planets and stuff like that, it wouldn't affect things too much. I suppose Lord Scourge might survive. It's at least possible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's got...
he's still immortal, apparently. I mean, unless, like, although Valkorian has just died, so it's possible that, like, he's no longer immortal and he'll discover that. He just doesn't know it yet because it hasn't been long enough. But I don't know. It feels like when he's talking that it still seems like he's got that same power. I don't know.
I mean, chill, they could have been making a clone in some far-off planet, and, like, his spirit went from the psychological world where we ended him and instantly transported into that clone, and he's slowly decaying. Sorry, wait, that's the wrong emperor. My bad. Disney makes this really confusing sometimes.
Hide and seek champion.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, the stories of SWTOR are so good, right? I mean, that's why everybody plays it. It's the mechanics of it, all of the gameplay, everything like that follows the stories, and that's what they came up with at the beginning, at launch, when I was heavily involved with it with Sonny's Diner, and that is still true today. That the stories drive that whole game, and so that's great. That's what makes it a fantastic experience. And so I'm not opposed to them saying like, hey, this is a blip in time way, way long ago. Let's just take these stories and make it part of it. But that's not really how Disney likes to do it. They just hate to be hamstrung by stuff like that.
If they spend too much energy, though, avoiding an integrated universe, they're actually going to create a more chaotic universe. Part of what I do is I lecture, so I'm really fascinated by your podcast, by the way, James. Like, if you ever need a guest lecturer to talk about Sith Lords, like...
I always need bit parts. That's
okay.
It's fun to try to get people to, like, Lacey Gillerin did a bit part. Holly Frey
that's
is, like,
fun.
one of my favorite people. Holly Frey does Stuff You Missed in History Class. And Holly does this, like, little bit part where she's on a ship and she's basically throwing away all my hollows into like the burner to keep the ship going. That's like three lines, right? So yeah, we'll find you a bit part. You'll be a space janitor somewhere.
Oh, that's great. That's all. I always wanted to be a janitor in a university. That's why I did what I did with SWTOR. I don't even remember where I was going. I'm so excited.
Lecturing.
Yeah. So, in what I do, though, I'm trying to help people with their thought processes a lot. And I think Disney, that all or nothing stance they took, where they chose nothing, right? Like, the whole universe is ours, so start watching it now. Mm-hmm. A lot of times the best option is in the shades of gray. And I hope that they can start to use that a little bit. Like, I feel like the High Republic is actually them realizing there is that gray area. Like, we can go before the movies, mm-hmm. But then they also don't like other people's concepts being a starting point. It's that creative freedom so they didn't go 3,000 years, they went 300 years.
Right.
And I feel like that's in play. It's like when a new GM for a sports team instantly fires the coach and trades away the quarterback. You know, like that's Disney. You know, the Carolina Panthers and Disney Star Wars are kind of the same thing. For anyone who likes real sports and not just football.
I'm 100% with you. I'm a sports guy as well. When you are the new GM of the team, you always talk about getting your guy, and it's your coach and it's your quarterback. And you don't want, there's a reason why they fired the last GM, right? Like, things weren't great. And so why would you want to live with the mechanics around you of not greatness? You know, if you're going to have to go home at the end of the day after being fired, you don't want to be fired because you had to inherit somebody's garbage, right?
That being said,
start over.
When it comes to fictional universes, Star Wars is not the Carolina Panthers, right? Like, we probably could have kept the quarterback on that transaction. And, you know,
I think that the stories in the past were so good that to say that you had to blow it up to make it better that's where you start to get questionable, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It seems that you could have taken those. Everybody would have been happy with a modern adaptation of the Thrawn trilogy, and that's the difference, right?
Yeah. When
there is Thrawn. Thrawn is in novels now, and it's sort of the same. It's very like kaleidoscopy, but he's got his own book. It's just very different. Yeah, it's not a bad book. Yeah. It's very different. And I agree. It gets very difficult, kind of like wrapping your head around, okay, this is how it is now. And of course, the other problem is, like, clearly the reason they're keeping Thrawn is because the old stuff was good. And so there are things that they are pulling from those, you know, both like thematically and sometimes like story-wise and stuff like that as well. But so it's like, even when they do something like Thrawn, there's clearly like an influence from all the legacy stuff. Like, it's there. It's
still Timothy Zahn, and
in this case, it's the same writer.
That we got a flashpoint out of him in SWTOR. You know, like, he's part of the DNA of Star Wars once you expand it just that tiny step to where, not the movie stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But you can't tell the story of Star Wars, not the movie stuff, without Timothy Zahn, because he's in it. Like, he's integrated into the spirit of why fans like this franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's interesting, the choice that they made with regards to the new authors as well, right? Like, they took a step away from some of the tried and true ones, and they went with some new voices, which makes sense. It tracks, right, with everything else that they've done. Just a little bit more control over things and a little bit less beholden to, killing Chewbacca with a planet and stuff like that. So,
instead, we will almost kill him with the Emperor's granddaughter's Force lightning.
That's right. Accidental Force lightning.
On the topic of authors, though, I just read through that in Ray Carson's Rise of Skywalker, and I thought it was amazing from a psychological perspective. Have the two of you read that?
I have not yet.
That book yet?
I've never actually read any of the movie adaptations into novel.
Oh. Is it okay if I just share why that looped me in?
Sure.
I guess we've all seen the movie, so.
Yeah, it connected the trauma and the lack of control from her childhood watching the transport fly away. And that brought out the dark side and her sense of attachment to Chewbacca. Like, no one's taking Chewbacca from me. And that paragraph where it brought in her memory when Unkar Plutt is, come along, girl,
right.
And then it's like, so she zapped the ship. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this author just won a lifelong fan for me, because that was so psychologically sound.
Right.
In the movie, I did not get what Rey was feeling there. I was just like, oh, she can't lose tug of war with Ben Solo in the sand. But
Yeah, and you're
yeah,
absolutely right.
Hmm.
I
yeah,
think that didn't really resonate with me as well. But when you think of it, like visually, you can just picture it in your mind, right? That ship flying away as
Right.
yeah,
From The
Plot is
Force
holding her
Awakens,
hand,
yeah.
pulling her away,
yeah,
and then you have the Chewbacca shuttle flying away as she's like reaching out to it. It's the same scene.
Ironically,
yeah,
they could have actually done that in Rise of Skywalker. They could have used that shot and like cut it in. You know what I mean? And the
yeah.
audience would have gotten it like, oh,
Oh,
she's seeing Jakku. You know,
Mm-hmm.
she's seeing her parents fly away.
So what you're
yeah.
saying is that you'd like to see changes made in a Star Wars movie.
Not necessarily. I'm just saying that when you put things in book forms, which is where a lot of the material that makes your podcast work and makes us have an imagination about this stuff, they can tell the story better than what they can do on film, apparently. Like
Right.
I don't enjoy saying that out loud, but I think it's obvious at this point that Star Wars is better when it's not in a movie theater. Don't send me hate emails, people. Just
I think
you
that
know, like
it's got more opportunity to slow down and explain things that would otherwise in film be an instant, right?
yeah,
Right.
Like you can explain thought, you can take a page and explain a thought that happens in a second on a screen, you
Yeah.
know, and that's what's great about novels. And you know, that's unfortunately what differentiates spectacular directors with good directors, right? Is the ability to convey that kind of stuff, despite the fact that they're limited with the time that they can have.
yeah, that's very true.
Right. So, James, so what do you actually do when you're playing SWTOR? Like, what attracts you? What do you play a lot of?
So I will be totally honest with you. I had not played a lot of SWTOR. I go back into it every now and then and come out of it. But the character that I played and still have is a scoundrel, a smuggler scoundrel, and I love.
Fun story.
It's one of those things where I didn't anticipate doing that. There was so much hype around the game launch and so much information about the different kinds of characters, and you'd see these little animations about what they could do, and you'd learn about a couple abilities, and you'd see this and you were just like, oh my god, what am I gonna do, because this decision is so important. And so I thought for sure that I was going to be a lightsaber wielding Jedi, right? And
Sure.
then when it all came down to it, I ended up being a gunslinger, and
Oh, wow.
and I always play female characters. This is just a thing with me. I've always played female characters, and so I had this character, Sunny, in the game, and she had this fabulous blue cape and this blue outfit. I think it was actually an early outfit reward for PvP.
Okay.
It's like a lieutenant or something like that. You had to achieve a certain rank, and you could unlock these outfits.
Right.
And so I had that, and it was just spectacular. And I played the style of character, very much a roguish style character, where I would be invisible and sneaking around and everything like that, and then I'd show up behind you and pop you with this sawed-off shotgun, and then throw a bomb on you, and then like kick you, and then run away. And if I couldn't kill you like basically immediately, then I was gonna have to be gone in a hurry.
Yeah.
And it was great, and I loved it, and I knew exactly who I was and what my use was. And so in battlegrounds, I'd be guarding flags, and the people would be like, there's nobody on this flag. So they'd run over there, and then as they're trying to cap it, here comes Sunny with her sawed-off shotgun, and it was great. I've never been a raider, a coordinated group type of raider, and so when I watch you guys do your Twitch streams with the insanity that's going on and the coordination that's going on, it just really blows my mind. It's not something I've ever been capable of.
Right. Have you been through all the Kotfi and Kotet chapters?
I have been. So what I ended up doing was I ended up basically fast forwarding through a lot of the content with different characters just to get the storylines. Because I thought that the main storylines were so good for the different style of characters. And so I would go through those. And then, now that you can go through the storylines with a subscription, if you subscribe for a little while, you can basically run all these characters through all the stuff. It wasn't as much fun for me after you hit max level, at least the initial max level, because then everybody's story is kind of the same. Or at least that was my experience. And I don't find that as interesting. I find it much more interesting to have the individual tailored, you're a gunslinger. This is your story. You're the archetype Jedi Knight. This is your story. You're a trooper. They can't have the same stories in my mind, right? Like, you're either wielding a lightsaber and slinging the Force around, or you're a dude wearing armor because you don't want to get shot, right? And so, like, I loved that they had different storylines that you could go all the way through.
Right. Have you seen all 8 stories then?
Yes, and I cheated on a few of them and just watched like the YouTube stuff.
But at least you've seen the story.
Killing more rat ghouls again. There's only so many of those I care to do, and some of the planets were just the worst. Like you have your planets that you'd love to spend time on, and then you have your ones that you just hate, and so that really drove me crazy when I'd have to go through a planet that I hated. There's one.
Would you like to throw any of them under the bus?
I do. It's the one at like level 30-ish. It might be a little bit earlier than that. And it's like a cesspool. It's like swamp.
Quesh?
I think that's it.
Sure, that's like level 36, yeah.
It's not like a planet that you would know, like a Hut planet or something like that. It just seemed to be just a crappy planet that had like the green stink waves constantly coming out of everywhere.
Right.
And I'm like, this sucks. And furthermore, it's like offset by places like Alderaan, where
it's gorgeous.
Great.
Yeah.
I just want to like hang out here. I would do everything here from now until the end of the game. And no, I got to go through Crash and deal with sewer.
Well, there's a reason there's now an Alderaan stronghold and there's no Quesh stronghold.
Yes. That's precisely it.
Quesh stronghold 2021.
I like gaming outside. Like I like my character to be running and fighting monsters in like a green field with a blue sky and sunshine. Like I don't like going into caves. I don't want any part of that. And so, a place like Crash with garbage everywhere is just not what I want to do in my free time. Let's go to the garbage planet and play in the garbage.
Well, our very first movie had a garbage chute, so maybe they're trying to stay true to there is garbage in this universe.
I appreciate it, and I get where they're going, but I don't think that would have been the hit that it was if they were in that garbage chute for most of the movie. They acknowledge the garbage exists, and then they get
the hell out.
Yeah. No part of that garbage.
Awesome. All right. Well, this is awesome. Let's we'll move to the regular part of the show, I think, unless there's something else to say. Well, you can say it at the end as well, but talk about how people get to your podcast and where else they might go to see you on the web.
Sure. So, University of Coruscant, I have a website, universityofcoruscant.com. You have to know how to spell Coruscant, though. So, I don't know if any of your watchers, the longest
I'm sure they're fine.
SWTOR podcast, can't spell Coruscant, but it's Coruscant. So, universityofcoruscant.com. And then you can find me on Twitter. We're on iTunes. We have a YouTube channel, but I don't have 100 subscribers yet. And so my YouTube channel looks like somebody's tax ID right now. I'm like so excited when I can get to 100 subscribers so that I can just put University of Coruscant on it instead of having like a garbage URL at the end of it. But you can definitely find me. I've got all of the episodes up on YouTube, so the idea was not to just put like a static background. So I learned how to do enough Photoshop to just make myself a little bit dangerous, and so I have a hologram of myself
right
as though you're watching it, and it just kind of switch between those.
That's cool.
But iTunes and everything like that. And if you do find the show, all I ask of you is that if you like it, you tell somebody, and you subscribe or leave a comment on iTunes or YouTube, because that's like really the way that our shows, get out there to other people and become a thing. So yeah, look for University of Coruscant. It's a blast. Listen for 5 minutes, 1 minute, you'll love it, and then you'll be hooked. And
that's right.
It'll be in your library.
That's right. And exactly. That's excellent. All right. Doc, what you been up to in game?
I've been losing a lot of boss fights.
Ran into a wall?
I mean, my entire lot in life is just to walk up to these bosses and wait for them to end me. So I'm working on Nightmare Terror with my Thursday night team. I'm working on Veteran Mode Revan with my Sunday night team. And both of those fights have phases. And I made it to the second floor on Revan once. And I got to die last. So at least from one perspective, maybe I was ready for the second floor a little bit more than the people that I let die before me. But I'm not a healer, so the idea that I let anyone die is laughable. They got themselves killed, and our healers couldn't do anything about it. So maybe they should watch some videos and be prepared next time. So hope you're listening, Ven. Haha. So
I recognize the notes of Operation Frustration, man. when your team is just hitting the wall, and it's like,
it's not fun. Like for the terror, we're working on the tentacles that pop up, and the DPS check is incredibly unfun.
It's strict, yeah.
On Nightmare,
yeah.
And on the poles where our tentacle is all well and good and wrapped up and we're ready to go, the tank will die on the other tentacle. Or then the tank on the other tentacle is still up when the first tentacle ends. But my DPS was like 600 points lower because I'm terrible on that pole. And it's just this abusive feeling inside of BioWare existing in my headspace and just reminding me, you suck at this game. You can write a dissertation, but you can't play. I'd be like, yeah, well, you can make the game, but you can't play. But they're not trying to win an operation right now. So it's frustrating. My Twitch channel, though, has been really active. I've been doing games in the morning before my work hours start. So West Coast time, it's around 8 a.m. usually when I try to kick it off. But, there are people that are approaching their lunchtime and they'll pop in from the East Coast and say hi. And I've been playing Persona 5 Royal, which is the updated version of Persona 5.
Okay.
And there's lots of cool psychological imagery there. So during the times where it's just dialogue, I try to fill the space with what I'm thinking about from a psychology perspective. And it's fun. It's a weird game. I was one of the first days I got to a boss fight, and one of my friends from SWTOR, Scrubland Chad, was hanging out with me in the Twitch chat, and this demon pops up that I have to kill, and he's sitting on the toilet, and he's like, "Doc, is that boss taking a dump?" And I was like, yes, he is. So that was a fun moment. Not SWTOR. Also, Resident Evil 3 came out last week, so I did one morning stream for that. And Final Fantasy 7 comes out at the end of this week, and that's going to hit my rotation also. And SWTOR is still getting streamed Thursday and Sunday, and I'm thinking about starting a stream with just a class story, which might be interesting for people to hang out with me. I've never really leveled a class before, and there are a few that I don't know very much about, so it might be good to add, develop my opinion. Because when we're reading the patch notes about power text, I really could care less. So
right.
maybe
if you've never played it.
tech.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what I've been up to, just losing, and then as a coping strategy, playing something else. Um, so how are you doing with SWTOR these days, Chill?
I'm doing great. We've got a lot of people in the chat. Because we had a nice long time before we getting to this. So let's go ahead and read this out. Who's showing? And there's probably other people. The list only updates so often. Beckett SWTOR, Bodhi, Brenna Platea, Brum 41, Supasanks, Commander Root, Dekion's here, Phantasmagoria, Intisar Nor, Jedi Knight 1, Kitty Kisses is here, hey Kitty, Lion Coat, Codger, Lord Dream Zero, Mako's here, Mako Marquis, he shows up on my stream a lot, so I know him. Respectfully Richie, Rimastano, Siskayega, Sir Galahard, Squishy Twitchy, Swordmaster, Sinwolf is here, V&K, Venaros, Virgo Praz, and Ex Modicus. And I saw Fee on earlier, but she had to go. And hey, everyone, thanks for coming. We're having a lot of fun today. So I was sick, of course, and then I finally got better, like 6 days ago, something like that. And took my son up to his college. That took a whole day. So, yeah, I've kind of had limited time since the last show. But I did... I did work on the Wonder Woman character. She's now level 66, about to start Rishi. That's been a lot of fun. And I've got Red. She's been in level for a while, but she's now done with Kotfi. She's done 2 chapters of Kotet. And I've also decided to go for this particular set because I wasn't sure if I was going to actually bother. Because I have my Assassin and Shadow, and they're geared out and set to go, and I wasn't 100% sure, but I really do think I'm enjoying the spec so much that I really should try to gear them up. So Red and the Wonder Woman are mirrors, so I can just get one set of gear. The set, however, that I've chosen to go for is really hard to get for me. It's the one that has a higher chance to drop from Duxon bosses, and it is not available on the fleet. That makes it very hard for me to get. It's not like the new set that you have to get from Nightmare Duxon. It's not that one. It's the one that's been around, but because it's mostly from Duxon bosses and it's kind of hard to get otherwise, it might take a while. So I might have to find another set to sort of tide me over, so I at least have some sort of actual set, because she's got 306 gear, but it's just there's no set bonus and whatever. I got the really good tactical though, because I bought the recipe a while back on the fleet, and I made one for both of them, and it's all set to go. And it's the one that takes that really strong healing defensive cooldown, and every time you get hit, it lowers the cooldown by 2 seconds, not more than once a second or so. But it's really, really nice. It's really, really powerful. And so I might have to figure out a different set to tide me over, but I'm really enjoying that. Still enjoying the spec really well, both leveling up and at endgame on Red. And and I also was able to do the Jar Jar Joyride. We did 16-man Scum and Villainy, and that was a lot of fun. I did that on my Assassin, Damage Assassin. And and it was actually one of the fastest, and everyone else said so too, it was the fastest Scum and Villainy they'd ever seen. It went really, really fast. We didn't have any wipes, hardly any deaths really, and just cranked right through it. This is story mode, of course, but that's what the Jar Jar Joyride is about. It's about pretty fairly casual stuff, and and
having fun.
Yeah, exactly, and having fun, and not banging our head against the next boss.
It's the opposite of what I'm exposing myself to on purpose.
Exactly.
You're living the best life, Chill.
Yeah, so I'm and because normally I have difficulties joining the Jar Jar Joyride, but I'm because I have limited time to be with my girlfriend. Friday afternoons is one of the times that we have, so I'm usually not online at that time. But because we're maintaining separation, she has a job where she has to continue to work, and I have asthma. I don't want to get the coronavirus. She understands, and we're sort of maintaining a fair bit of distance. But it does mean that Friday afternoon I'm usually online, so hopefully I'll be able to do more Jar Jar Joyrides, and I really enjoyed this one. It was a lot of fun, and we really we kicked some butt. It was a very fast one. It really was. So that'll bring us to the tip of the week. I didn't see any in the mail, so I'm happy to provide one myself. And I think we've definitely touched on this a few times over the years, but I'm going to kind of go through it. And I actually went back into the game to make sure I had those settings correct and everything. So there's a setting in your options for your ground-based AoE, so like lightning storm, stuff like that, where if you like double-click it, it will actually cast it centered on your current target. And so this way you can actually still target wherever you want, like you put it anywhere within range with a single click, or if you double click your keybind, it'll then just center it on your target and it'll just put it right there. And it's really, really handy to have that as an option. And it's really nice that you don't have to have it that way either. But so you can single click, target, put it wherever you want, double click, puts it on your target. So that's so useful, because if there's certain fights where you have to be running away from circles on the ground, or if there's other issues where maybe the vision is weird or something, you double click it and you put it right on top of them. It's awesome. And it even works in really odd places. For example, if you're in the Walker on chapter 1 of Kotfi, it's actually Kotet. I should change that in the notes. It's chapter 1 of Kotet, where you're in the Walker and you have those missiles that are ground-based AoE. You can actually double click it and it'll put it on that target. And there's this boss at the end where he's going to keep shooting at you, so you're going to have to keep running around. And you can actually keep firing that ground-based AoE, which is one of the higher damage abilities you have in that Walker, without having to actually physically target. You just double click it and it'll put it right on him. It makes it a lot easier. This also works if you're using a damage ability but you happen to be targeting an ally. You can still put it centered on them. That works. That's totally valid. And vice versa. If you have a healing ability that you want to put on the ground to splat your healing over everyone, but you happen to be targeting an enemy, it doesn't matter. It'll just center it on that enemy, and it'll heal everyone around that enemy. So it doesn't matter if it happens to match the type. So damage can be on an ally and vice versa. So that's really nice as well. And so with a little practice, you'll know exactly when you should be using what. Okay, I should directly target this one, or nope, this one's fine. I can just double target and hit the target and it'll be fine. And it just makes things a lot easier and a lot smoother. So to find this, you go to Escape, Preferences, Controls, and then under Controls there's a section called Combat, and you highlight the box for Quick Ground Target Activation, and there you go. So very useful to have. I don't remember any longer. It's been in the game a while. I don't know. I do know that once you set it, it's pretty much set. It doesn't when you make a new character, it'll already be set at that setting. But I don't know if you haven't set it before. I don't know what the default is anymore. For a new account. But I do know that once you set it even when I make a new character, it's already got it. So it's one of those settings that will kind of stick around for you if you set them. So definitely check that one out, and I think you'll find for any character, and most of them do have ground-based AoE. I don't think every spec has it, but I think almost every spec has some ground-based AoE, and it's very, very handy. So there you go. Now, Doc, I know you've been really busy with your classes, so there was no Mind Trap this time. We'll get on to the Holo feed. There's really not a ton of news this time. We're in sort of a quiet patch, but we do have a few things. There's some April events that are going to be coming up. One is starting today. It's the Rakghoul Resurgence on Tatooine. It goes through the next week until the 14th. And so the good old Rakghouls are on Tatooine, and if you want to do that reputation and all that good stuff, this is the time to do that. The one that I think everyone's kind of excited for is going to start on April 14th, Double XP event. It's going to run essentially a month until May 12th. So starting April 14th, lasting till May 12th, there'll be a month-long Double XP event. And it says, enjoy a full month of double XP, Valor, Renown, and more. Well, it's not everything is doubled, but yeah, but it's really nice. If you are looking to level and you're not the kind who likes to sit back and enjoy the story and take it easy, but you really want to get through a class really fast and get to endgame, this will be the time, because it really does help. And of course, if you have XP boosts, it even makes it better, so it's all good. There's also going to be a bounty contract week later in the month, April 21st through the 28th, and yeah, good old bounty contract week is coming back. It's funny, it's like that's one of the ones that I consider as pretty fun, and yet I don't do it enough. Like, I don't think I've got anywhere near the end reputation with them, for instance. But I know I've done it, a fair bit over the time, just not consistently. So, but I do actually like that one. I think that's pretty cool. There was an update from the support team. This is coronavirus related. And they said, as the world continues to adapt to current events, we wanted to share an update regarding our support team. Due to the coronavirus and with guidance from local authorities in specific regions, we've closed some of our support channels and reduced support hours to limit any risk to our teams. Support is still available to handle email and in-game tickets at the following times. In the USA, from 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. or 1400, that's Central Time in the USA. In the UK, 10 a.m. to 1900 or 7 p.m. UTC. In France, it's 11 a.m. to 20 or 8 p.m. CET. And Germany, same time, 11 to 20 CET, so 8 p.m. CET. All right, if this availability changes, they will follow up with an update, and they hope that everyone is staying safe and healthy. And other than that, there's really just been a few like bugs that have been talked about and then they say, hey, we thank you for letting us know, we're working on that, or they give us an update on what the bug is. So the first one I've noticed, actually, because I've been doing leveling, and if you go into your Odessan, like in the war room, there's some banners. It's like, how you go in, and then there's like a holoconference table, like right in front of you, kind of like center middle, and then there's some banners around it. And usually you don't even notice the banners, but you can't miss the banners now, because they're essentially like glowing like 4 suns, like right in your face when you go in. It's like, it's a little nutty when you go in there. So they know about it. They plan to fix the bug in 6.1.1. So that is coming up.
That's where Valkorian's spirit went.
That's right. He's in a banner. There's one for Activity Finder. Story operations are no longer showing multi-boss operations, apparently. I'm not sure if this is all the time or sometimes, but in any case, they are aware of it, but they don't have updates as to when it might be fixed in this case. Same one with another one. Vendor purchase gear doesn't count towards achievements. There's like a couple of the new sets of gear that's supposed to head towards your achievements. And gear-related achievements is kind of a newer thing, I think. But it's definitely in Onslaught for sure. And apparently, though, sometimes it's not working. Depends, and apparently it sometimes depends on like where you get it. So Chikaro not spawning after reintroduction. And then this one is they know about this one too, but there is a workaround. So if you complete your currently active chapter, so you have no active chapters in your mission log, you then attempt to complete your current story mission, and if you cannot complete it still, then reset progress on your current story mission, and usually that will work it around, but you can also contact support if you have a problem. Doc?
This actually happened to me the very first time I went into Onslaught. I had a Kotet Master Mode chapter in my mission log. Okay. And what ended up happening is you can't go into that cave without Chikaro. You can't summon other companions to go with you.
Right.
And so basically you have to redo the entire... you have to drop the Kotet or Kotfi chapter, abandon it, and then you'll have to go back into that palace. You'll have to reset the Onslaught mission in your mission log, so just hit reset, and then you'll have to go get Jakaro again, and it will be fine.
Okay, good.
So I had to do this.
That's actually a clearer version of what they were saying, so I appreciate that. Yeah. So that has happened to you. Interesting. I haven't noticed that. I think I did get him back on 1, but I must have not had any chapters active. So apparently, yeah, that's interesting. So apparently, like at some point, like because to get Jakaro back, you're supposed to be a certain point in the story, and apparently they got a little aggressive with like looking back to see if you have any chapters active or something like that.
I want to add to this: if you are about to pick up a new companion, or any opportunity to add a companion to your list, make sure there's no Kotfi or Kotet chapters in your mission log, because I remember my wife did not get Darth Hexid when she originally came out because the chapter conflicted with updating the companion list.
Oh.
And so the game thought she had Darth Hexid, but Hexid was not in the list at all, so therefore you can't summon her. And this happened to me with Alara Dorn also. So there's something about the way the Kotet Kotfi chapters interact with the companion list, which makes sense. That's when we started getting all the other classes' companions.
Right. And companions like often not being available and stuff like that.
That's right.
For
something
story
about
reasons.
deactivating availability stops the list from adding a new entry.
Right.
And then when you finish that chapter, the entries then repopulate. I don't know how it's programmed. I'm not a game programmer developer, but as a player, that's what it seems like happens, is all the moving parts that result in a new companion being in your list can get messed up by having a chapter that's trying to do something else to the list at the same time.
Right. Yeah, and James, so like when it comes to companions, do you have like a favorite companion or a favorite companion story?
I like the Wookiee. I was a
Bodar?
big fan of Bodar. Bodar was big for me. The one that I struggled with was Riggs, was Corso Riggs, because like I said, I always play a female character, and I really didn't like this dude.
He wasn't my favorite romance character either. Yeah,
and he was supposed to be my like love interest or something like that, and I'm like
potential at least. Yeah,
honestly, like I really didn't like a lot of the smugglers' companions. I thought that the was that girl's name Rishi?
Risha, yeah.
Risha, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a character, and I'm only now realizing that I have a character in my show named Rishi, and I'm like, uh-oh.
Like the planet?
Flat steal that from somewhere else, and clearly I like stole it from the planet, not thinking about it. But it just worried me right this second that was also that character's name. It's Risha, you're right. I didn't really love her either. I loved Bodar. I thought Bodar was awesome. I thought Bodar was funny. The droids are always funny. And I
do you like Gus? Gus Tuno?
I did like Gus.
I happen to love Gus. Yeah. And then the Kavi Spar is the last one. She's the Mandalorian.
I liked her.
Yeah.
I liked her probably more than a lot of them.
That's interesting.
Bodar was my favorite, but I didn't love the two main ones, which is probably Risha and Corso Riggs.
That's interesting. I love Risha. It took me a long time to warm up to a Kavi Spar. It actually, the time that I kind of really got into her character, and I thought she was a lot more interesting after that, is the time that I actually romanced. I did it on a male smuggler, and I romanced her, and you see a lot of extra sort of like background, and you understand a lot more about her mindset and stuff like that. And
I was gonna say, you don't see
really helped.
Lot with her. Like, there's not a lot going on.
It doesn't feel like it, no. Until you but the romance, if you ever do the romance arc with her, or maybe there's a YouTube video of it. There probably is at some point. There's quite a bit of extra sort of background and detail, character detail, I felt anyway, when I did that, and it helped me sort of understand her and appreciate her more. So yeah, so it's funny because she went from like way low down on my smuggler companion list to like pretty high. yeah, I'm a big Risha fan, but I like the whole story because you see her for a while and you have to do like all of Act 1 with her being kind of there but not a companion, and then there's like this whole story. Anyway, I don't want to. If anyone happens to not have seen the Smuggler story by now, I don't want to totally give it away because it's kind of the huge thing of the Smuggler story. But
one of the things that you said though is really worth pointing out, and that's what this game does really well, which is introduce characters and not have you immediately have access to them. Right? Like introduce a character, let you sort of play alongside this character and kind of be curious about them and not really sure whether or not they're going to betray you and become like an enemy or something like that, and then have you have the ability to sort of be like, okay, you seem good enough, you want to join my crew, but it doesn't happen immediately.
That's right. Yeah, like Gus is like that. Gus is basically like he's not exactly betraying you, but he's kind of betraying you. He's like he's being forced into doing things that he doesn't really want to do that hurt you. And then you have to kind of like reconcile that over the course of the entire planet until he becomes your companion. And a lot of companions do start out like that. Like you get to see them for a whole planet's worth of story. So you sort of learn a bit about their background or what their personality is, what their situation is in the world and like that, I think Alara you meet on Belsavis, I think. And then
I know Bodar you meet on Narshada.
Narshada, yeah, because he's
and I thought that was like the coolest.
He's a prisoner or slave,
yeah. A gambling planet and fighting this Wookiee against other people.
Right, he's like
yet he's still like sarcastic throughout the whole thing.
You're right. Yeah, he really looks down on all the things that the Hutt sends to fight him, doesn't he?
Right. Sort of like
the other thing that does is it makes that moment when they finally enter the battle with you and you can control them. Most people don't have to control their companions, but it makes that more meaningful, right? Because they've been passive or they've been dealing with their own stuff, and then their path converges with yours.
Yeah.
And that's actually a huge part of why any of these little characters are memorable, because if they just joined you and start fighting, then they're just whatever, new resource, new part of the game.
Yeah, you don't treat them as much like, oh, great, a healer, right? Like, it's like, this is Gus,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Gus is with me.
James, what you just said is actually even a step further. You just called one of your companions a healer. So in that original version of the game, you might use a companion whose personality doesn't really hit those notes for you because they can heal or because they can tank. And in the current game, all companions have access to all three, which makes them less important because you can, like when I'm doing it, the intro planet, I just set them to DPS and like you just face roll the first couple planets because you're not supposed to have a healer yet. So there's no reason to have one. So it's just like an extra killer of alien scum.
Right.
I play a Sith, so sometimes that comes out.
I will say this. I thought that the Sith stories were really good. I was really intrigued by those. I probably liked the Sith line more than I liked the Jedi lines.
Good.
Yeah, I thought those were a lot of fun. I find it hard to play a Sith for a long time because I'm inherently just like trying to make good decisions out of bad situations, and that's not really the way to do it. But I thought that was super cool. I also thought that I just love the look and the feel and the play of the bounty hunter characters. I think that they did that as well as they could. It's hard to have an MMO and have something exclusively different like the bounty hunter, but I thought they did a good job of separating those kind of characters from like the operatives and then the Sith. They really, really tried to say, this is different. Like, this is what this guy does. Don't try to be something you're not. Be the bounty hunter. And I thought they did a really good job of that on the whole Empire side.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. So, all right. I think that's a show. Go ahead, James, and give us one more time how people meet up with you and listen to your podcast.
Absolutely. Before I do that, though, I want to thank you guys so much for letting me go back in time here and talk about SWTOR. I mean, Sonny's Diner was like such an important part of my life all those years ago, and there was only so many of us, back in that initial wave of podcasters. It was like, Darth Hader and stuff like that, and Mos Eisley Radio and
That's
Old
right.
Republic dads, and we all knew each other, and we all had this level of like understood respect for the community. It's like we're all trying to push in the same direction and get this thing going, and it was so much fun. And I have some of my best gaming friends to this day came out of SWTOR, and so it warms my heart to see you guys continuing down this path, and you do such a great job of it. So thank you very, very much for having me on this legendary show.
Well, thanks. Yeah, and I've enjoyed the University of Coruscant that I've seen, and I'm gonna go back and watch the whole first 2 seasons now, because now that I know exactly what to expect, it's like, yeah, I gotta check all this out. So it'll be fun to see if how much you're able to incorporate SWTOR stuff. I don't know how much you have yet. Have you actually touched on much SWTOR?
Well, I mean, you get some of it with the weaponry. The bounty hunters are a little trickier because all bounty hunters basically come in the modern era, right? You don't have any bounty hunters from back then. When we get into Sith Lords, though, in season 3, I have a feeling that you're going to start to see that, because the whole Revan story is SWTOR and KOTOR, right?
Right. Yep.
Chill. I'm always taking notes when I'm in a lecture, and he called our show legendary. So now I'm questioning whether these shows have even actually happened.
Only Disney knows for sure.
Oh.
You heard one of my keywords. Legend has it that this show is good.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Oh man, because I do things like that. I do things like that where in the first hour I'll say something very particular, and then come 9 p.m. when we're in the home stretch, I'll say it again. And if anyone in my class has lights behind their eyes, I'll know that they've been with me for this whole journey. So thank you for that fun existential question to my existence.
Awesome. All right, then.
You can find University of Coruscant at www.universityofcoruscant.com. Find us on iTunes. We're on YouTube with all the lectures.
Right.
Leave a review, leave a comment, subscribe, say hi. I'm happy to talk with anybody that's willing to hear me speak.
Yeah, everyone, get some subscriptions on that channel, so
exactly.
So URL. Let's do it.
So if you like Star Wars lore in general, or if you remember Sonny's Diner from back in the day, check it out. And that's excellent. So that's a show. If you'd like to play with us in the Utini Knights Guild on the Republic side of the Satil Shan server, or in our Guild on the Empire side, do a /C join Utini to join the Utini channel. Then let us know you're a fan of the show. You can email questions and comments about the show to OotiniCast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter using @OotiniCast. You can find contact details for us on our website, OotiniCast.com, which includes how to subscribe to us using iTunes, Stitcher, and the rest. We record the show live bi-weekly, usually on Tuesdays at noon Pacific. Go to OotiniCast.com/live to find out how to join in. Our theme song is Doomsday by Jean-Paul Zogby. And thank you to the chat room. And thank you, James.
Thank you, guys. It was an absolute pleasure.
Excellent. And we'll see you next time. All right. We're going to stop it there. Thanks for coming, everyone. I'm going to stop the stream and stop the recording and do my editing and all that jazz. So have a good one, and I'll be streaming later. And Doc, are you streaming anytime later today?
I already streamed today. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm teaching all the students, so it's really hard to tell. Just connect with the Force; it will tell you.
Awesome. And James, when does your next episode come out? Do you know?
We have shows on Mondays.
Excellent.
So I released Aura Singh yesterday. and that was season 2, episode 5, I believe. Because
Cool.
it's the first time I'm on the weird unnamed, which I am absolutely stealing from The Mandalorian. So
Excellent.
So I've done this season. I've done Dengar, IG-88. Geez, I don't even remember now. Forlom and Zuckus, Aura Singh, and I can't remember who the fourth one was.
Nothing obvious like Bosk, right?
It was Bosk.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Bosk. Why wouldn't it be Bosk, right?
The most famous one. Well, besides Boba Fett.
Boba Fett is the last one of the whole season.
Awesome.
That's
Looking forward to
smart.
that too then.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. All right, stopping the stream.
You can't